Hi there and welcome to the CyberHut TV Vendor Introduction Series. My name is Simon Moffat. I'm founder and analyst at the CyberHut. And in our Vendor Introduction Series, I have the privileged job of interviewing some of the smartest leaders in our global identity security world to understand a little bit more about their mission and vision to solve some of today's hard-pressed problems. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have Paresh from Natoma with me. Welcome.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you. I don't know about crazy thought leadership, but I'm excited and super gladful to call Simon as a friend and to be here on CyberHut TV.
Oh, that's great. No, look, I think anybody who is building startups and tackling some of these problems is smart in my eyes. So the way this works, for those who have not seen an episode before, I essentially get to ask our esteemed guest three very important questions to understand a little bit more about their backstory and how they are thinking. And we always start with the same question to begin with, which is what is the problem that Natoma is looking to solve?
Thank you, Simon. Again, we are trying to make sure the non-human identities, all your identities that are used for automation, all the identities that are used for integrating various systems, programmatic identities, they are fairly secure, right? Our mission is to build the foundational identity infrastructure that enables enterprises to securely enable automation, but now with all the AI coming in, securely adopt AI. Again, not all identities are same, and that's where we are. Sorry, Simon. Yeah.
No, and it's a big problem, isn't it? Because whichever report you read around how many of these non-human identities we have, it's either 10x, 15x, 40x. The number seems to get larger and larger. But I do have a quick sub question. Really, is around how do you describe? Obviously, NHI is a popular term. You mentioned NHI at the beginning. Is it NHI? Is it workload? Is it machine identity? Are they the same? Are they different? What's your view there?
Yeah, you know, I truly believe like what's in the name, right? As Shakespeare has said, do we really care about the name? I personally truly believe it's not machine identities, right? As I was saying, what about your agent and all of the agentic AI you are trying to integrate? Are those really machines? What about your automation that you're using and trying to integrate your Salesforce to Marketo or AWS to Snowflake? Is that really a machine, right? So machine identity, I really feel, narrows the problem. The reason I truly believe non-human identity is the right term is because it just helps you define and think of identity separately. As I was saying, not all identities are the same. Human identities, you can associate it with that. You can have a source of truth. You can actually mark that, and there is a well-defined protocols, well-defined processes for human identities. That's where non-human identities is really lacking. So it could be the identities of your servers, that's your machine, or it could be the serverless application, the lambdas you're doing. It could be the identity of your AI agent, or it could be the identity of the bots that you are running, right? So it's all these identities which are outside of the human identity. So the natural term comes in as non-human identities.
No, it's great answer. Yeah, and it's interesting. It's such a broad category, isn't it? As well, there's so many things that now can be in this NHI world, as you say, including AI-related components. That sort of nudges me into the next question: really, is as to why is this NHI thing become a bigger problem now? I think clearly it seems to be a numbers game. First of all, there are just more non-human identities to solve. But is it also maybe that the existing technology just isn't designed for this, I presume, as well?
No, a very, very good question and a very valid question. And as you said, the number is all over the place. you, depending on what reports you're reading, you're looking at 1 is to 45, 1 is to 50. In our experience, we've generally seen around 1 is to 30 range right now. But again, it all depends on what kind of services you are trying to integrate and what kind of application you are trying to integrate into. So that defines it. Why is this a problem? That's a great question. This is not a new problem. Service accounts have always existed, right? And service accounts were the start of this non-human identity. And if you go back to Windows NT back in 2000, these identities, these service accounts were there. But as we've kind of matured, as we started adopting cloud and PaaS, these started growing in the number of SaaS applications, and that started growing. And now in this world of automation, it's exploding. And with all these AI agents coming in, the problem is just getting gnarly. So it's not a new problem. Why is it now? I truly believe because the human identity, there's been a lot of focus there. There's a lot of maturity that has happened, right? We've gone from like uh, doing IGA to PAM, trying to do cloud PAM, cloud IGA, modern IGA, combining, unifying that with the access management solutions, right? All of those is it's maturing your human identity. Not to mention there's a lot of focus from the industry in terms of FIDO2. Of course, you do MFA. I doubt there is an enterprise today which does not do MFA, right? And then you are looking at uh, passwordless FIDO2 authentication, biometrics, pass keys. So a lot of innovations happening on the human side of things, and we are more and more tightly controlling the human identity. So naturally, where are the threat actors going? Let's go to the non-human identity, right? So they are smart. We are going to we try to bolster one side. They're like, okay, let's see, there's a weakness on the other side. It's unfortunate, and no matter what, very recent report I read, 85% of breaches involve non-human identity, right? Be it ransomware, be it like data exfiltration, no matter how a threat actor gets in, it could be a vulnerability, it could be like just credential stuffing and some human side. But once the threat actor gets in, the lateral movement is always done through a non-human identity. As I said, like they move there, get to the data, do some ransomware attacks, encrypt the data, or if they're exfiltrating their data, that's also through like an API key which might have been created a year back, not being used. Nobody knows about it. There could be malicious auth integrations happening into data. So no matter how the threat actors uh, get there, what they are trying to do, at the end of the day, at some point, non-human identity is always involved.
Yeah. No, it's a fascinating thing, and as you describe, it's just proliferating, isn't it? The problem statement is getting bigger. The more systems we integrate, the more third-party systems, the more we look to rapidly deliver APIs and applications, a whole host of things, hard-coded credentials, right the way through to, as you say, things like AI.
It's a very vast problem. It's a very decentralized problem, and there is no source of truth in it for these.
Yeah, fair. So that sort of ends up the final question. Essentially, we've painted this picture around there are more identities to manage. Yes, we may have solved some of the human-related aspects. I think absolutely right. We have this huge big problem statements around this NHI world, but how are you guys? How are Natoma best placed to solve some of these? What's your sort of secret sauce and your sort of methodology, if you like, to try and tackle some of these?
Yeah. Like you said, we are the smartest guys. No, all jokes apart. Uh, I'll take a two-phased approach to why Natoma is well placed. Right? There's a lot of focus on non-human identities, and as I kind of highlighted why. And because there's so much focus there, a lot of vendors are trying to go solve the problem. In my opinion, we've not defined the problem well enough. And it's not just because it is non-human identity, you can't like put the human identity processes directly and map that to non-human identities. So why we are best placed? First of all, we know the human identity processes. The founding team comes from Okta, so we come from that pedigree of thought process. And because we've seen those processes, we believe that the existing processes do not fit into non-human identity. And it's not just a security problem. It's an identity problem, but it's a combination of it's an identity problem, but the identity processes that we know don't work well. So what do I mean by that? It's can you just go and say, hey, we'll do lifecycle management of all these non-human identities? As I said, there is no source of truth. For human identities, an IDP and access management product can come in and take care of it is because you have a source of truth. Back in the day, AD could be a source of truth or a Workday source of truth, depending on the enterprise, how they managed it. But then you have that source of truth, you're feeding it into an IDP and you're doing access management aspects of it, right? Uh, Here, there is no source of truth. So the approach that we have taken is starting by doing that full discovery and becoming the source of truth, figuring out what all these non-human identities exist. As I was saying, it's such a decentralized problem and it's spread out everywhere. Let's become the source of truth. So Natoma becomes the source of truth. Now, once we are the source of truth, this is when we really go think about lifecycle management, the governance controls around it. What is that lifecycle management? Can we really do joiner, mover, lever processes for non-human identities? Of course not, right? What does a joiner mean? There is no new person coming and joining these identities, right? So the way we really think of it is in terms of RRR actually. What does that mean? As we've done that discovery, the first step is let's go revoke the orphaned ones, the unused ones, NHIs that we have discovered. The reason there is this 1:50 number out there is because you just keep creating, enterprises keep creating NHIs, people leave, the institutional knowledge is lost, and those identities are lingering around. Nobody knows where they are being used, nobody knows if they are actually active. So, step one in that lifecycle management is really doing that revoking. Then, let's right size those. A lot of times, these NHIs are way overprivileged. As developers are wanting to build something, as you are integrating various systems, you will just use an identity, use a API which is way overprivileged, even though you just need some of these privileges. So as we do the discovery, as we really find out what the permissions are, as we become the source of truth, now we right size those permissions. And the third R is rotating. The biggest challenge that we've heard from customers is they just do not want to touch these tokens, these credentials for service accounts. Why? Because nobody knows where it is being used, right? So if you do that discovery work, if Natoma becomes the source of truth, we know where everything is being used, how everything is integrated, and now we really go and do rotation. And once we do all of that, is when we really start doing zero trust principles around it. That is when we really become the authentication layer for all your AI agents, right? That is the third step of it. And that's the approach Natoma has taken, which we feel is why unique and why we are really best placed to solve that problem. One key thing that always comes to mind, human identity was always solved in silos. What do I mean by that? Hey, Enron happened, WorldCom happened. Unfortunately, we start governance came in, some regulations came in. People started doing IGA. Oh, we need like SaaS is coming in. we need an IDP and a cloud IDP, and you started doing access management. And then for your privileged resources, you had PAM. So these three identity pillars, in a way, was very siloed. And only recently, now as industry is maturing, all vendors are kind of going crossing up and down, right? Like, oh, let's do a unified platform. We are access management, but we can do IGA also, or we are a PAM vendor and we can do access management, and now I can start doing governance as well. Because the industry has realized that you really need a unified platform and these pillars cannot exist in silos. And that is a third piece of Natoma, which we've really taken this approach of having natively unified platform for non-human identities, and that approach of doing that discovery, becoming the source of truth, providing governance and controls, and then really thinking about making zero trust and system.
Good stuff. That was really detailed response. I think there's certainly, there's so many things we can learn from the people-based world around, as you say, the source of truth, the ability to manage the end-to-end cycle of this. That was a fascinating insight into how you guys see the world and how you can try and tackle some of these NHI problems. I do think that the space is getting bigger and broader. It's a big problem that even the smallest organizations really are having to deal with. And I think as well, as you articulated, there's more to it than just rotating credentials and certificates. It is that end-to-end process, the same as we have when dealing with people. So Paresh from Natoma, thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to improve the world of NHI and NHI security. This has been another episode in our vendor introduction series. Thank you to Paresh, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.